When was the last time you looked in the mirror and actually recognized the person staring back at you? Not the tired eyes, not the posture slumped by the weight of unfulfilled promises and deferred dreams. But the real you, the one with potential, with fire, with a hunger for life. Let me guess. It has been a very long time. You wake up, you scroll through the highlight reels of other people's lives. You drag yourself to a job that drains your soul. You numb your brain with cheap entertainment. And you go to sleep. Wash, rinse, repeat. You are existing, but you are absolutely not alive. You are a ghost haunting your own life. Trapped in a comfortable misery because the pain of staying the same hasn't quite overtaken the fear of change. Why do you accept this mediocrity? Why do you lie to yourself every single Sunday night, whispering, "Tomorrow, I'll start working out. Tomorrow, I'll start that project. Tomorrow, I will change," but tomorrow never comes, does it? Because tomorrow is the most dangerous drug on the planet. If these words sting, good, they are supposed to. I am not here to coddle you. I am here to wake you up. If you are finally ready to stop being a spectator in your own life and start engineering the reality you deserve, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel right now. Make that simple click your first decisive action today. Join a community of individuals who are actively refusing to stay asleep. Now, let us dissect exactly why you are stuck. As a behavioral psychologist, I can tell you that you are not broken. You are not inherently lazy. And you are not cursed. You are simply functioning exactly as your brain has been programmed to function. You are currently residing inside what I call the invisible cage. In psychology, the foundation of this cage is known as learned helplessness. This is a concept discovered by Dr. Martin Seligman. When a human being faces repeated failures, setbacks, or a continuous lack of control over their environment, their brain eventually stops trying. Even when an opportunity for escape is presented right in front of them, they will not take it. They have fundamentally learned that their actions do not matter. Combine this with what psychologist Carol Dweck calls a fixed mindset, the deeply ingrained belief that your intelligence, your character, and your creative abilities are static givens that you cannot change in any meaningful way. You say things like, "I'm just an anxious person," or "I'm just not a morning person." You have weaponized your own identity against yourself. You have built an invisible cage out of your own repetitive self-sabotage. And locked the door from the inside. But what if I told you that the lock is an illusion? What if I told you that neuroplasticity, the brain's extraordinary ability to rewire itself, dictates that you can completely dismantle this cage in just 30 days? Let me tell you about a man who did exactly that. We will call him Arthur. 30 days ago, Arthur was exactly where you might be right now. He was 32 years old, 20 pounds overweight, drowning in credit card debt, and entirely paralyzed by a severe case of learned helplessness. His apartment was a graveyard of half-finished books and abandoned gym memberships. His dopamine baseline was so completely hijacked by endless doom scrolling and junk food that normal, everyday tasks felt like climbing Mount Everest. Arthur's turning point didn't come from a dramatic lightning bolt of motivation. Motivation is a myth sold to you by the self-help industry. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions are fleeting. You cannot build a foundation on something as unstable as an emotion. Arthur's journey started in a moment of pure, agonizing disgust. He looked at his reflection and felt physically ill at the waste of his own potential. And in that moment of disgust, he didn't make a grandiose, impossible plan to change his entire life overnight. That is where most people fail. They trigger a massive cognitive resistance from their brain by trying to do too much at once. Instead, Arthur applied a psychological principle called behavioral activation. He started with a micro-habit so small, so laughably insignificant, that his brain's defense mechanisms didn't even register it as a threat. Day 1 of his 30-day transformation began with a single rule: make the bed. That was it. Not, run 5 miles. Not, launch a business. Make the bed. When Arthur smoothed those sheets, He achieved something monumental in behavioral psychology. He secured a micro-win. This micro-win sent a tiny, controlled spike of dopamine to his brain, not from mindless consumption, but from accomplishment. For the first 7 days, Arthur focused purely on lowering the activation energy required for positive habits. He put his phone in another room before sleeping. He drank 1 glass of water before his coffee. He was essentially performing a manual override on his basal ganglia, the part of the brain responsible for habit formation. He was proving to his subconscious mind that he was capable of keeping a promise to himself. But by day 15, the honeymoon phase of self-improvement ended. The initial excitement faded. His brain, desperate for its old, cheap dopamine hits, began to fight back violently. The lethargy returned. The whispers of the fixed mindset echoed in his head. Why are you doing this? You're just going to fail anyway. Just relax. 1 day off won't hurt. In behavioral psychology, we call this the extinction burst. It is the moment when a dying habit kicks and screams the loudest just before it is finally eradicated. It is the crucible where 99% of people break and return to their invisible cage. It is the crucible where 99% of people break and return to their invisible cage. Arthur felt the crushing gravity of his old life pulling at him. The couch looked impossibly inviting. The fast food delivery app was just 1 tap away. His brain was screaming for the familiar comfort of numbness. But this time, Arthur did not rely on willpower. As a behavioral psychologist, I must warn you, willpower is a finite, highly unreliable resource. It depletes when you are tired, stressed, or hungry. Instead of relying on brute force, Arthur used a psychological framework called implementation intentions. He had pre-planned his response to temptation. His rule was simple: if I feel too exhausted to go for my daily walk, I will simply put my shoes on and stand on the porch for 1 minute. He didn't have to walk. He just had to break the paralysis of the first step. And invariably, once the shoes were on and he was standing outside, the psychological friction vanished. The hardest part wasn't doing the work, it was transitioning to the work. By lowering the barrier to entry, he bypassed his brain's panic response and kept his streak alive. By day 22, a profound, almost magical shift occurred. Arthur entered the phase of identity-based habits. Previously, Arthur had defined himself by his failures. He was a procrastinator. He was out of shape. But after 3 weeks of unbroken promises to himself, his internal narrative was forced to evolve. He experienced cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that occurs when your actions do not match your beliefs. Because he was consistently acting like a disciplined person, his brain had no choice but to update his identity to match his reality. He was no longer Arthur who is trying to get his life together. He became Arthur, the kind of man who does the hard things. When you shift your identity, you no longer have to force yourself to act. You simply act in accordance with who you now believe you are. Then came day 30. Was Arthur suddenly a millionaire? No. Did he have a fitness model's physique? Absolutely not. But if you looked into his eyes, he was fundamentally unrecognizable. The dull, lifeless glaze was gone, replaced by a sharp, undeniable intensity. He stood taller. He spoke with quiet conviction. His apartment was organized. His debt was finally being managed. And he had dropped a few pounds. But the true metamorphosis was entirely invisible. Through the power of neuroplasticity, Arthur had physically altered the structure of his brain. The neural pathways associated with discipline, focus, and resilience had thickened, while the circuits tied to helplessness had withered from disuse. He didn't just change his routine, he changed his biology. He proved to himself that he was the architect of his reality, not a victim of his circumstances. The door to the invisible cage had been wide open all along. And Arthur finally had the strength to walk out. Now, look at me, look closely. I started this conversation by telling you some harsh, uncomfortable truths because I respect you far too much to let you drown in your own comfort zone. I wanted to shake you awake. But hear me now, and let these words anchor deeply into your soul. You are so incredibly capable of profound greatness. The fact that you are still watching this, the fact that you have listened this far, proves that the fire inside you is not dead. It is just buried under years of neglected potential and false narratives. You are not your past failures. You are not your anxiety. You are not your fixed mindset. You are a biological miracle equipped with an infinitely adaptable mind. You are designed to overcome. The invisible cage is a lie. The door is unlocked. You have simply forgotten how to push it open. I am not asking you to conquer the entire world tomorrow. I am asking you to conquer the next 10 minutes. What is your making the bed moment? What is the one micro promise you can make to yourself right now, today, that you can actually keep? Here is your call to action. Right now, scroll down to the comment section. I want you to write down your day one micro habit. Make it public. Make it real. Whether it is drinking a glass of water, reading 2 pages of a book, or doing 5 push-ups, declare it to this community. Let us hold you accountable. Your 30 days start right now. The clock is ticking. You have suffered the dull, aching pain of regret for long enough. Today, you choose the sharp, empowering pain of discipline. Build your momentum, shatter the cage, and step into the extraordinary life you were always meant to live. I believe in you. Now go prove it to yourself. I will see you on the other side.